Welcome back, Seth Bling here. Today Mojang released the 14w07a snapshot, and while again there aren't that many changes relevant to survival, there are some really useful new map making features that are actually going to change the way map makers do a lot of things. So without further ado, let me get to it. First, let's start with the vampires. You can tell they're vampires because they're sparkling in the daylight. Yeah, so these vampires will actually turn into bats. And you can see that we have the vampire bats. They'll kind of fly away, and I can turn them back into vampires. And this was something that was not at all possible before today's snapshot. I'm actually, anywhere that there's a vampire, I'm basically removing the vampire, killing it, and summoning a bat. And then vice versa. When I press this button, anywhere that there's a bat, I'm killing it, and I'm summoning a new vampire, and that's made possible by the new execute command. Basically, the execute command will find, in this case, any zombie within a radius of 50, and it'll execute some command relative to it. So basically, this particular command finds a zombie within a radius of 50, or any zombies within a radius of 50, and at each one will summon a bat with the name of vampire. And then this one is just getting rid of all the zombies within radius of 50 after that. And then the other button over here is doing the exact opposite. So execute is actually a really powerful command that lets you do basically anything you want relative to existing entities. So you can turn them into bats, turn them back. So that's really useful. You're going to be seeing a lot of stuff coming out that is really useful with these with the execute command. I'm going to get these guys out of the way a little bit, let them fly around, because they're in the way of demonstrating the next thing. Alright, so the next thing I want to demonstrate is this. Well, let me just turn it on and demonstrate. So we've got our little pumpkin dude over there. If I turn around and look at some other stuff, what? It's a little bit closer than. What the heck? Oh my God! So this is made possible. I am using execute in this one, but it's made possible via basically rotational detection. If I turn around one more time, you'll see that the golem gets teleported again. Basically, each time I turn this way and then back, it's going to get teleported. And I'm just going to turn it off. This is using the rotational detection for players or entities, but basically. This checks the first coordinate of your rotation and checks it was between 0 and 180. So if I press F3, if you look at the facing, that'll tell you the two angles of your rotation. So RY and RYM are basically the min and max angles for rotation about the y-axis. So that's the first coordinate. You can also do the vertical rotation, which is RX and RXM, but I'm using the horizontal rotation so that I can detect when the player is looking away from this guy. So, well, not exactly away from this guy, but towards this direction rather than towards this direction. So that's also really cool, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with that. Detecting the player's rotation. And you could use more command blocks and have more fine grain control and do different things depending on which direction the player's facing. All right, so the next thing here, this is just another example using execute. I'm going to go ahead and grab a snowball, and I'm going to toss the snowball up in the air. You'll notice, whoa, that's a bit laggier than it was. Yeah, I guess since I'm recording, it's going to be a bit laggier. So this isn't really coming out very well in the recording. But basically, it's constantly summoning a snowball, a giant snowball, wherever I throw the snowball entity. If I go closer to the ground, you can see it for longer. But yeah, it's lagging a lot because I'm recording. This wasn't doing this before, but maybe if I throw it straight up, yeah, when it gets too far away, it's still not visible. But yeah, when it comes back down, you can see the snowball. Kind of cool. Yeah. So this is made possible by basically constantly cloning this chunk of blocks here wherever there's a snowball. And so this is a little clock. These two command blocks are actually being constantly activated. But first we replace an area of snow with air around the snowball, and then we clone the again, using the execute command, we clone the snowball template to wherever there's a snowball anywhere in the world. So this will work no matter how far away you are, wherever you are in the world. You'll be able to throw a snowball and it'll make a giant snowball, and sometimes it'll tunnel through the ground, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll get stuck right here. Yeah, it's a little bit random how it behaves, just because the snowball has a velocity and whatever. But okay, so that's that. That was just a cool application of the execute command. But there's a lot more applications for that. But I need to move on. Okay, so here, if you look on the right side of the screen, we have a points objective. This is a dummy objective that I made. It's got green, red, and blue. These are the players on the scoreboard. Now, previously, you couldn't do a lot with players on the scoreboard that weren't actual players, right? If it said Sethling up there, I could, I could add and remove scores. I could also test for scores above or below a certain value. But with red, green, and blue, previously you couldn't do that. Now, there's some pretty cool things you can do. If I push this button in my chat log, it's going to say in total there are 4 points, because 2 plus 1 plus 1, red plus green plus blue, that's 4. If I go ahead and add a couple to the green score, you can see now it's going to say in total there are 6 points. So it's just adding it up, and no matter what I do, now there's 7 points. You can also test for particular scores. So in this one, I'm testing for a score of the red points objective of 3 or more. So right now, red has a score of 1, if you look on the scoreboard. So when I push this button, the light doesn't turn on. If I go ahead and add 2 over here to red, now red has a score of 3. If I push the button, it's going to light this up. So you can use the scoreboard to track variables that aren't being tracked on players. They're kind of global variables, and that's really cool, really useful. It might not be apparent if you don't make maps why that's really useful, but it's very useful to be able to track a score globally. You can also use, I'm not demonstrating this in the video, but you can use a hashtag before a player name. Well, it's not a real player name, but if I said hashtag red for the name on the scoreboard, it actually wouldn't show up in the scoreboard, but you can still do the tests and adding up. The summation here, the thing that says in total there are 9 points, this uses a new type of command with a scoreboard. So first I'm setting a total to 0, and then then I'm using this new operation argument for a scoreboard. So scoreboard players operation lets you take. So I have this objective total. Sorry, the objective is dummy. The player name is total, and so basically I'm adding to total everyone's points. Okay, this is a little complicated, and it's not easy to understand at first. I recommend you go look at the changelog that I've linked in the video description if you want to try and understand this. But basically, it's taking red and green and blue and adding all of those players' points to the total objective, or the dummy objective for the total player. It's confusing. It's a little bit confusing to explain it, but so you can. Whoops, I did not mean to right-click that. Well, anyway, there are just totally wrecked my redstone. There are plus equals and minus equals and times equals divide by. So you can actually do multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and modular arithmetic with these commands, which is really powerful. Okay, so next thing I want to show you here is I'm going to press this button, and it's going to give me a mob spawner. The name of the mob spawner is a Jeb sheep spawner. Now, typically in the past, if you've gotten a mob spawner and you place it down, it would just be a pig spawner. This is to demonstrate custom MBT information on a spawner. Basically, you can preset a spawner in your inventory with information about what it's going to spawn. So here, I'm spawning sheep named Jeb _, which is, of course, Jeb's username. And so it's spawning sheep, and this was a feature in the recent snapshot that I didn't cover. If you name a sheep Jeb _, it'll change colors like this. So yeah, you can give the player an object that already has pre-filled NBT data. Now, this doesn't just apply to spawners. It also works with command blocks and chests. So if I give myself a chest and I go ahead and let's just put some things in it. Let's put another chest in there. Let's put the Jeb sheep spawner command block. Now, okay, if I use control middle click, that's control pick block, I'll get the chest in my inventory. Now, if I place the chest down and look at it, it's got the exact same contents. So it's actually storing copying everything about this chest into the item that's in my inventory. So when you place it down, anywhere you place it, you're going to be able to get the same data. And so this works for chests, this works for command blocks. So if I look into this command block and I press control pick block and I place it elsewhere, you'll notice this has the same text in it, exact same text. So this is really useful for copying things if you're in creative mode, but it's also useful for adventure maps to be able to give a player a block that they can place down. You could give a player a chest with a bunch of contents that they can place down anywhere they want and access it. So very powerful. Okay, so the next thing here is I'm going to give myself this item. It's called Boots of Leaping here. Now you notice if I jump, I'm jumping the normal height. But if I put on the Boots of Leaping, I now have jump boost. And if I look at my inventory, you can see I have jump boost over on the left. If I take off the boots, you see the jump boost goes away. If I put them back on, it'll come back in a moment. I'm getting a bit of lag. I'm not sure why I'm getting so much lag, but it seems to be a consequence of one of the recent snapshots. But if anytime I take off the boots or put them on, it's gonna basically disable or enable jump boost. And similarly over here, I'll give myself an item called Pumpkinoculars. So if I want to see something more closely, I can take out the Pumpkinoculars, and I'll be able to look. I can't move around while I have this the Pumpkinoculars selected because it's actually applying slowness 10 to me. But if I take the Pumpkinoculars off my hotbar, or off the selected item slot, that is, I move around and I don't stay zoomed in, but if I just select it again, I can zoom in again. So this works based off a new feature, which is partial list matching in NBT tags. So what's going on here is basically, previously, if you wanted to detect items in the player's inventory, you had to specify every single item that was going to be in that player's inventory, and that isn't really very effective. Now what you can do is you can just specify a single item that you want in inventory. So here I'm just looking for an item in slot 100, which is the boots slot, and the item has to have the name Boots of Leaping. So if you're wearing an item in your boot slot named Boots of Leaping, this comparator is gonna turn on, and I could show you that. And that's what causes that jump boost effect to happen here. And I'm hiding the particles on that. That's cool. And when I take it off, the comparator turns back off. And now similarly, over here, I'm testing for the player having a pumpkin in slot 0 and simultaneously having their selected item slot equal to 0. So basically, I have to have 9 of these command blocks because I have to test do they have a pumpkin in slot 0 and selected slot 0? Same for slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, 4, etc. up to 8. So I have 9 of these command blocks, and if we look at the comparators, when I pull out item 4, you can see comparator 4 lights up, and that's what causes the command block to give me a slowness effect. So yeah, partial list matching. It doesn't just apply to players' inventories. It can also look for items in chests or the player's inner chest, all kinds of different things. Then there's other contexts in which that's useful, but this is just kind of a demonstration. Okay, the next feature here is dispensers and command blocks. So a dispenser will now dispense a command block when it's activated, rather than just spitting out an item. And these command blocks have the custom NBT data, so like I was showing you before. So when I go ahead and push this button, or maybe you want to push it for me, Jed? No? Okay. When I push the item, it's going to dispense a command block that has text already filled in. And so this one's said blue. But I have 3 different command blocks, and each one has different text. It's going to pick randomly among them. So if I press the button again, it's going to dispense potentially a different command block. So each time I press it, it'll say a different word, red, green, or blue. And so this can be used for very simple redstone randomizers. You can pick between 9 different values and run a different command each time, and basically just filling up the different 9 slots with different command blocks will allow you to do that, and that's very powerful. It's really cool, and it's very compact for a randomizer too, very quick and just convenient. Okay, so the next thing I want to show here, and this guy might show it prematurely, is you can get different scoreboard objectives to show up for different teams. Right now, if we open my inventory, this looks a little glitchy, but it shows I'm on the red team. My name tag is red. Actually, if you press F5, it now shows your name tag. And although it's a little bit glitchy, if I look at weird angles, it kind of rotates. I don't know. I think it looks a little bit glitchy, but I'm the red team right now. So I'm going to join the green team. That's what this pressure plate's going to do. And it's going to display a different scoreboard objective. If I join the blue team, a different scoreboard objective. And so the way this works is you can do scoreboard objectives set display sidebar.team.green, and you can pick whatever objective you want. I don't know. Let's use player. I'm not sure what's in that, but now if I go to green, it's going to show the player objective versus it was showing the kills objective before. So you can show a different objective to players based on what color their team is, and it's kind of cool. I'm not sure what that's what kind of stuff that's useful for, but I'm sure people will come up with ideas. The next thing here is a new command. It's test for blocks. Not to be confused with test for block. This has an S on the end. This basically tests an entire region to see if it matches another region. So the syntax for this is very similar to clone. Basically, you specify 2 positions, and those are the corners of a rectangle, and then another position which you're checking against. So this is checking this source region here, the red, against this destination region, the green, and it's actually checking 2 blocks high. So if I put blocks in them and they're different, and I push this button, the comparators aren't going to turn on. If I actually delete all the blocks and push the button, the comparators will turn on because the 2 regions are exactly the same. So if I put some blocks in and they happen to match between the 2 regions, then the comparator will stay on. Now there's 2 modes for test for blocks. There's normal and then there's masked, and I have masked selected here. What that means is it's basically only going to try and compare blocks that are not air in the source version. So basically right now all 4 of these blocks need to be present in the green region for these comparators to turn on. So they aren't right now. They're going to turn off. But if I have all 4 plus maybe even some extra blocks if I want, then the comparators are going to turn back on because all 4 of these blocks are present in the destination region. So that's how it works, and basically you can just test for a lot of blocks at once at the same time. And if you wanted to, force a player to recreate a house, you could put a house there and make sure that they've recreated it perfectly. And again, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use this for, but it does seem like a powerful tool. Okay, so then for survival Minecraft, you can now craft iron trapdoors. This works exactly like you think it does. They're just like regular trapdoors, except you can't right-click to open and close them. So I'm sure people will find that useful for tamper-proof devices, so you don't accidentally right-click your way into, like standing on top of a trapdoor and right-clicking and falling down to your death or something like that. Okay, so that's all I have to demonstrate. It's actually kind of a lot, and some of it was kind of confusing, but there's some things I want to mention that I can't really demonstrate in the game. Bundled resource packs. You can now put a resource pack zip file within a save file, and it will automatically load that texture pack, resource pack, when you open the save file. So now map makers can distribute their maps with resource packs included, and it won't require a separate download or going into your resource pack menu and activating a resource pack. Very convenient for custom maps. Okay, so you can also share your world to LAN. Actually, I guess I can. If I click open to LAN, you can say game mode spectator. So the other people on the LAN can join your world in spectator mode, and they'll be able to fly around, but they won't be able to, interact with it or destroy anything. So that's a pretty cool feature, I think. F3, if you open a F3 menu, you'll notice the very bottom line says what block you're looking at. This is pretty cool. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the exact coordinates of different places are. So that's just kind of useful for people who deal with coordinates a lot. And then the last thing is name tag visibility. So if you do scoreboard teams scoreboard teams option red, there's now a name tag visibility option that basically there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 different ways to do it. The default is always, as in always display the name tag. But you can also never display the name tag for people on that team. You can hide your name tag for people on other teams. You can hide your name tag for people on your own team. So a lot of configurability there for map makers, and that applies to like seeing people through walls, because normally you have a wall and somebody's on the other side of the wall and they're not sneaking. You can see their name tag, and so this allows map makers a bit more flexibility with how people can see each other through walls, which I think is pretty cool. If you want to see the full changelog for the snapshot, and you might want to, I put a link in the video description, and hopefully you can find more information about a lot of the stuff I've talked about here at that link. And otherwise, pretty cool snapshot. That's about it. Thanks for watching.